Next up on Unity Live at GDC, we're talking to the legendary developers of Firewatch, Campo Santo, about In the Valley of Gods. We are back at Unity Live at GDC, and we're talking to Chris and Sean from Campo Santo. Thank you so much for being here, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Happy to be here.
Cool.
I'll wave.
Yeah. We've done a lot of awkward cross-shaking already.
Yeah, we've had a lot of.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I just sit back and wave now.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's safe.
So guys, super excited to meet you both. It's really nice to have you here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Legendary developers of Firewatch, of course. If you guys haven't played Firewatch, go and play Firewatch.
Legendary.
Legendary.
Yeah, I
Stuff
thought about
of legend.
illustrious, and then I thought,
That's a
it's
lovely
a little bit
word.
I
No,
weird.
that
much
was a
prefer
big-
legendary.
Yeah.
Legendary and illustrious.
Sure.
It's
We've
glad
been
that
really
you saw the
excited.
contract that we give everyone before we do any press, where you must call us legendary
Yeah.
or
Adjective, no list.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we call it the legend writer. It's
Oh, okay.
affixed to all
Yeah. We have a good
I like
lawyer.
that.
Keeps it in
media
there.
appearances.
It's very, very particular. So we're not really here to talk about Firewatch. We're here to talk about your new game, In the Valley of Gods. I don't really know where to start. I think the best thing to do is probably watch the trailer, because if you haven't seen the trailer, then you should. So let's have a look at
It's
the trailer
legendary.
right
It's a legendary trailer.
now. The legendary trailer.
We are kneeling at the river's edge and tempting all the steps to follow closer right behind. Is it only when you feel the pot is empty that it's gnawing at the corners of your mind? Oh, I will ask you for mercy. I will come to you blind. What you'll see is the worst me, not the last of my kind. Holds me down. Hold me now. Sold me up. In the muddy waters we're falling. Holds me down. Hold me now. Sold me up. In the muddy waters we're falling. Holds me down. Hold me now. Sold me up. In the muddy water we're falling.
Wow.
So I don't really know where to start, because
I
there's
thought
so
you
much
did a
to
wonderful
take in.
job singing that song, by the way, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris does a lot of our music
was
composition.
very
He really
unexpected.
hit all the high notes,
Yep.
I thought,
Yeah.
in a really,
Yep.
really wonderful
I
way.
had a legendary voice coach.
That is a genuine question, though. Like, I know you do a lot of the music at the studio.
Yeah, that was licensed, obviously.
was.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a woman named LP. Track is called Muddy Waters. And she's awesome. And yeah, just a wonderful performer and artist and songwriter, and probably written songs for acts you know. And she actually just did a tour on the West Coast that we went to the people at the studio and saw at
cool.
the Independent. And yeah, let us use the track, and it's
Sweet.
awesome.
Yeah.
Although there's also a cool story behind the other music in that trailer, which was actually legit. So the music that opens the trailer, which is this very sweeping kind of adventure music,
Yeah.
that was actually found from doing a deep dive into old Republic serial film soundtracks.
wow.
from back in the first half of the 20th century. You know,
wow.
sort of 30s through 50s.
So it's kind of like lapsed copyright archives.
No, it wasn't. We licensed it.
Oh,
We
okay.
found
Yeah, we
it.
paid for that.
Yeah,
Everyone
yeah.
got a taste.
Yeah, but it was really cool going back and digging into those archives and listening to all of this totally period appropriate stuff that would have actually been the sound of kind of an adventure film from
Yeah.
the era in which the game's set.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, obviously, this is a bit of a departure from, well, stylistically at least, from Firewatch.
Sure.
Like, I noticed you guys had, like, Ollie Moss had left, who was the art director on Firewatch. How did you find Claire Hummel, the new art director?
Claire, we found as fans of her work, not dissimilar to how I became friends with Ollie. Like, oh, I'm a fan of yours on the internet. You want to hang out and talk about working together? And it was literally that. She did some Hamilton fan art,
Okay.
and it was amazing. And a cursory digging into her background showed that, like, she wasn't just an awesome illustrator, but had game dev experience, was working on a VR title at the time for HBO, had done some work, design work, or visual design work on BioShock Infinite, had spent time at Microsoft first party, and we're like, you're just a unicorn, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you don't find someone like that every day. And we kind of gave her the hard sell of coming to work at Campo, and she played it super cool. And I was like, oh, we're not gonna get her. She's not gonna come work. But
Almost too cool.
almost too cool. We're like, I guess we just have to hire this other person. But inside, I guess she was trying to play it cool because she was a huge Firewatch fan. Like,
Okay.
and she's super into national parks and just the entire milieu of design around like the Americana of the outdoors. And
But also, basically an expert on ancient Egypt.
I was gonna say,
I
yeah,
read about
the
it,
most
yeah.
ridiculous possible
Yeah.
confluence of interests in her personal and professional life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Claire
incredible.
Hummel was built in a laboratory to work at Campo
To work on
Santo
that game,
in
yeah.
2018.
Yeah, to bridge
Yeah.
the gap between these two
Yeah.
games
Yeah.
and then ship this one. Yeah, it's outrageous.
Yeah.
And I guess is Campo still quite a small studio?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
we've
quite-
not really grown really at all.
We added an animator named Mike, who I worked with at Telltale. Did a lot of the big character moments on The Walking Dead season 1,
Yep.
so he's legit. Who else did we add?
We added our
Producer
kind of
Sophie.
producer named Sophie, who I worked with at Irrational on BioShock Infinite, which Claire also worked on.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah,
Matt.
it's all just kind of
Wild.
connections and
Yeah.
people we've known for a long time kind of joining in, which is
And the main
super fun.
VFX specialist who did a lot of the just sort of overall graphic presentation stuff of Virginia. This guy Matt
Yeah.
Wild, so it's another
yeah.
Unity title. So the team, we just sort of tried to look at what we thought we did well on Firewatch
Yep.
and go, okay, well, don't forget about that stuff. And don't take it for granted. But where do we want to improve from a design standpoint and the product itself, and then also the team? Like, where did we just struggle, even though you may not see it in the game, where did we feel a lot of pain trying to make Firewatch? We're like, oh, let's like address that, you know? So we disconnected a lot of our programming side from gameplay programming, and a lot of like the things we did about like hiring this new animator was kind of separating out that load between performance and just sort of feel, you know? And we're just kind of, you know, trying to like hit an ambition, but also keep the studio the way we want it to work in terms of the way everyone's workload and what they're responsible for. So a lot of the recruiting and growing of the team was around that. It was never like, we need to grow to 25 now because
Yeah.
Firewatch
Well,
sold X
yeah.
amount of copies or anything like that.
And after all that, we're still really only about a dozen people.
Yeah, about
so
12
it's
people.
we've barely grown since Firewatch.
Yeah.
Are you guys still working with Panic on the kind of publishing side, or is that just
Not
one
on
team
this
deal?
game. No,
Okay.
not on this game. Like, we will forever work with Panic in some regard because they're
'Cause you
like,
use
we're very
Transmit.
close to them. We use Transmit. We have a like very close relationship with them.
Yeah.
But for now, we're doing this on our own.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it's a very different game. Like, I mean, just from experience playing Firewatch, it was open. Like, you could go to any of the locations in the forest.
Yeah.
This, correct me if I'm wrong, it seems more like it's a linear path just by the very nature, or is that a
Well,
misassumption?
I wouldn't say it's linear. I would not say it's a linear path, but
Okay.
we're definitely exploring different structures from Firewatch. I think in keeping with the kind of, earlier 20th century serial adventure story, like maybe draw bits from the kind of episodic nature of those sort of classic stories, but still in a way that we think will be allow the player to feel like they are exploring the world and expressing themselves and doing the, in Firewatch, as with this game, the story and the characters and the conversations and the situation of the world, those are all the most important thing. And so all of the gameplay also has to reflect all of those things. Like there isn't a distinction between the cutscenes and the gameplay. It's all the same thing. And so trying to figure out, okay, well, for this game, how does the different setting, the different story, the different types of characters, how do those stay in conversation with the core gameplay to still have it all be of a piece? And that's going to be different than Firewatch, but still, I think, going to be very like player-oriented and hopefully very natural.
Because it feels like it must be a huge challenge to have an actual character there. Because
Oh my God.
I'm understating it a little bit.
We thought it was going to be a big challenge. It is like
It's so
way worse.
It's like having a kid or something. We're like, oh, this is going to change my life, and you're like, oh my gosh, I did not think
So did
about
you start
all
out
this.
thinking,
It
it's fine,
changes
she'll
the
just hide
concept
behind a
of
rock?
life.
Yeah. Pardon?
Does she just hide behind a rock when you're not worried about her?
Yeah, she's got
It's like a
Yeah.
companion cube.
It's like,
She's just
can just
hanging
are
turn
you
out.
into
familiar
a-
with Creepy Watson?
No.
Creepy
Creepy
Watson?
Watson.
There's this
I'll have to show
Sherlock
it you
Holmes
later.
game
Okay.
It was
where
brilliant.
the way that, so you played as Holmes, I guess, and then there was the Watson character, and the way that the Watson character moved was whenever you were not looking at the Watson character, the game would just quickly put him where he's supposed to be, so you'd look back around and suddenly he's right here. And
So it's
oh my
like
God.
Slender or some kind of like
Right.
horror game
Yeah.
where he's just like.
But making this game gives me a lot of like sympathy for the Creepy Watson developers
God, yeah.
because it's like, oh God, if only we could just do that. It's having a character who feels like she's living and breathing and responding to you, but not just slavishly following you. I mean, is like has her own intentions and feels like she has interiority and all these other things that a person needs to have. It's really hard. I mean, we're making a lot of progress, and having worked on BioShock Infinite was sort of an interesting like kind of primer for dealing with a lot of these issues. But we are trying to take it as far as it can, go with what we're capable of doing, and it is difficult, but it's a super interesting challenge.
Yeah.
And she's not like a helper, and you're not her helper.
Yeah, I was kind of joking about that.
No. I think it's important to point out, though, because we talked a lot about that in the trailer. Just like things like, when they're setting up the camera at the end of the trailer, who's holding what and doing what we dissected at a very atomic level, because we knew that if we got the balance of those things wrong, people were going to feel like, oh, well, I'm the helper, and she's the whatever.
We
Or
made a
like,
big
oh,
course
she's
correction on that.
she's my, like whatever, like, the donkey that carries all my stuff, and I just go be the hero.
Yeah.
So once you have that set up as a dynamic, you then have all these design challenges, because she can't just hide or be like, hey, I found you this thing, or like, hey, I was out away from you and did this very helpful thing, because she has to go and be her own person who takes up space and has wants and desires that work in concert with yours, and because the game is really about their relationship as equals. But yeah, it's that making that decision on the page means we sign ourselves up in the design side for a myriad of problems that it's
Even just things like giving objectives for what is your next thing to complete. Like you can't have it that she's always giving them to you because she knows everything the game knows, because that starts to feel like then she's basically just a quest log.
It's like a Cortana kind of thing.
Right, but
Exactly.
it can't be that just you do everything and she's like your sort of escort quest follower. Like there has to be variety in how all that stuff is distributed. Like there have to be times where she's leading, times where you're leading. It just has to all feel like the way that an actual human relationship has push and pull and all those things.
And they have to be likable.
Right.
You have to, even when they're disagreeing or arguing or having conflict, you can't lose them. Like you have to feel, as your character is speaking, oh yeah, I am connected to this person. And while the fiction of the story, the conflict in the story might mean that I'm in an argument with her right now, it can't be like, F you, well, we're done talking. No one wants to be in a fight like that.
And we actually
did that in Firewatch.
we went through that in Firewatch,
Yeah.
and we actually rewrote a huge chunk of the game because we thought that would be a really interesting kind of dramatic moment, and it was in some ways, but it also kind of just like closed everything down. Like it's sort of turned off.
Yeah, I mean,
game.
the argument part in Firewatch felt like one of the most interesting bits where they kind of seem at odds.
Yeah, no, I think we ended up in a good place.
Yeah, because there was a twist to that. Like we ended up, we zigged where we should have zagged, and we had to go back and zag and cost ourselves a lot of time and money.
Always zag.
But yeah, where they have this fight, and then she's just like, well, we're not talking anymore. And we're like, oh, that'd be so different, because you'll just be alone out there.
Yeah.
Turns out the game sucks.
Yeah. We were even like, oh, we could spend like a third of the game in this like new alone status. And it was like,
so bad.
Just cut to black and white and silence. It'd be really dramatic.
Yeah, just like it became like the bicycle thief.
Just do like,
you
do the Nintendo thing where it's like, you've been playing this game far too long. Why not consider turning it off and exercising?
Yeah.
So last question I have to ask you guys. We are Unity. What do you like about working in Unity, and like how have you found it, like coming from Firewatch to this game?
Say, we are Unity.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be like we are Sparta. I am Sparta.
We are Unity.
It's not that weird.
Yeah, you want to jump on that, Chris?
Yeah, Unity. The really, really great thing about Unity, I think, I say this to people all the time, is that the whole tool set feels like it was designed by a single team, which seems like it would be obvious because it is.
Yeah.
But that is not often how a lot of tools are. Often tools, you can feel the sort of
disparity
of like years and years of development and like adding things
and
on.
Other games almost.
And exactly, all the different games have been used to make it, whose kind of contributions have been like welded on to the branch and to the trunk. And it's, as someone who is, I have some facility with programming, but I'm definitely not an engineer. And it is so nice to work in an environment that is that consistently designed, so that when I do, go into C# or I do go into like start bolting things on, I feel like, oh, okay, there is essentially an overall philosophy to how this thing was made, that even if something new is released in a point release, like I still basically understand how it fits into the whole, and that is like invaluable. That is so useful.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We've also been able to just build on top of it a little bit in terms of some of our internal tools and it all feels, like I said, like homogeneous software. Even the stuff. I mean, that's a testament to
even when
Pete
you get
and
stuff from
Ben,
the asset
for sure.
store.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The asset store has actually been is always a huge boon for us, because
sure.
people are like, oh, like you don't think of a developer like us using the asset store, at least especially for like art, but we buy stuff and just slot it in all the time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're like kit bashing the asset store, like.
Well, I mean, asset store is kind of almost a misnomer, because certainly there are assets on it, but there's also just little tools and little things where you're like, this is just like, there's this $2 thing that just adds this button right here, and that's perfect for us. It's exactly what we need, and I'll just put it on there. I mean, it's just, there's stuff like that that's just so nice. It's just, I don't know. I mean, it's related to one of the things I was saying before. I mean, there's this other component of it, which is just a lot of people use Unity. So if you don't know how to do something, or you don't have a given thing, you just
somebody
search on
around
Google for it, and probably someone has solved that problem. Which, like, not to be,
except when you search for it and there's no answer, you go,
then you're like, oh my god.
No.
Well, that's why
We're way out
is,
here.
Oh no,
that's why
I'm
you
the
have
pioneer,
professional
right?
programmers.
Yeah, we're on the
That's
vanguard.
why you-
Ben, you got to do something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much
thanks
for
for
being
having
here.
us.
I'm
Cheers.
afraid
Yeah,
we
it's
do
a lot
have
of
to let you go,
it's fine.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I guess we'll
Absolute
leave.
pleasure to have you guys.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
guys.
Thanks for coming, man.
Thank you.
Yeah.